Hello everyone, welcome back to Touch the Fire Twice. I'm Joshua, and I'm here today to do an in-depth sniff and comparison review of two candles from the Snif Valentine's Day 2025 collection. We have Big Flirt and Guilty Pleasure. But first, if you're new to Touch the Fire Twice, welcome. My mission here is to share my love and passion for fine home fragrance as an enthusiast, an educator, a reviewer, to inspire you to increase your own fragrance knowledge and understanding, ultimately enhancing the scent memories that you create. If you'd like to know more about what I do, why I do it, and how I do it, you can check out my website at TouchTheFireTwice.com. And please do give me a follow over on Instagram, also at TouchTheFireTwice. But for now, let's dig into Guilty Pleasure and Big Flirt. First, I will say thank you to Snif. They did send these to me for the purposes of reviewing. I am a Snif affiliate, which means if you would like to use my code Joshua10, you can get 10% off of your order on the Snif website. You can also smell many of their fragrances at local Ulta stores. As with all of my reviews, first we will do, of course, an unboxing to talk about the packaging and presentation. We'll talk about the fragrance, hearing the brand's scent story, as well as getting my nose on the candles. We'll talk performance and quality, the strength, the throw, the projection of getting that fragrance up into the air and into our noses. Then perhaps a comparison to other scents you may be familiar with, and a deep dive into the notes to understand what are we smelling when it comes to patchouli gallo or cherry blossom. Specifically, what are they and what do they smell like and how are they used in fine fragrance? Now, both of these fragrances were released as part of the Snif Valentine's Day 2025 collection, but of course, being fruity, floral, flirty gourmands, these could really be burned year-round. When it comes to that luxury experience, part of it is the unboxing, and I will say their branding, their marketing is fun, it is pretty, there's thought behind it, it is modern, it is cute without being cutesy or too much. And let's look at the actual candles. First up, Guilty Pleasure. This is going to be a gourmand fruity fragrance. Snif always does have a second box within. Very simple with a pull ribbon on top. And this is their 6-ounce single wick candle. It has that nice plastic dust cover lid there in a very light blush pink glass vessel. Opening up Big Flirt, same story here. A gourmand floral fruity fragrance. This has a deep strawberry red colored vessel. As I said, both of these candles are their 6-ounce single wicks. They also come in an 8.5-ounce 2-wick candle and a 50-ounce 4-wick candle. Snif uses a soy vegetable wax blend, 100% cotton wicks, and is cruelty-free and vegan. Let's get into the scent story of each. We'll start with perhaps my favorite, I think maybe most people's favorite, which is Guilty Pleasure. A perfectly pink confection that's love at first bite. This melt-in-your-mouth macaron scent is whipped to perfection with fresh raspberry, fluffy meringue, almond cake, and vanilla bean butter. Full notes also include cherry blossom and powdered sugar. Big Flirt is a gourmand floral fruity fragrance. Like a wink and a grin, Big Flirt invites you to settle in and stay a while. With an alluring combination of ripe wild strawberries, chocolate ganache, vanilla milk, and champagne, this sultry burn is almost better than dessert itself. There's nothing like the thrill of a new flame. So with Guilty Pleasure, we know we're going for a true-to-life, fruity gourmand, that classic French pastry of the macaron made with almond flour. And with Big Flirt, we're going a bit more conceptual, still having a gourmand, but adding some floral in there, adding a little bit of an herbal spice, adding a few notes that maybe aren't listed here, but I'll get my nose on in a second. So with that, let me get my nose on each. Guilty Pleasure is bright. It is fruity because it does have that acidity that a raspberry will bring. A sweet, not quite sugar crunchiness, but the way that meringue, especially a baked meringue, has a little bit of that sort of sugar crunch edge to the fluffy softness. Some vanilla, they say vanilla bean butter. This is not so much buttery, but there still is that cakey aspect due to the almond flour pastry that is used to make a macaron, as well as the note they have here is almond cake. Certainly you get that true bitter almond scent, almost a little bit of a cherry in there. You have the benzaldehyde that is the organic compound within bitter almonds and cherries. So there's a bit of a crossover there. This is sweet, a bit zippy, fairly authentic. There's a bit of sort of that perfume aspect on top of it. There's just a little bit more to this than you would get if you were just biting into a raspberry vanilla cream macaron, but that's welcomed. I wouldn't even go to say conceptual. This is fairly true to life. And in fact, this reminds me a bit of a Bath & Body Works fragrance from many years ago for the Bath & Body Works fans from the Spring Street Sweet Shop collection, the Raspberry Peach Macaron. That candle had notes of raspberries, peach, and almond cream. Very similar in style. No peach in here that I can detect, not a duplicate of that. But when it comes to macarons, vanilla mixed with raspberry, that tart, tangy, sweet, almost bracing fruit with the warm, round cream of the vanilla bean butter. Again, that powdered sugar note I think is there to just sweeten up the meringue a bit. And cherry blossom again, because that does sort of add a bit of a floral aspect to this. Not heavily floraled, but a really nice companion to the almond cake fragrance. Not heavy, light, airy, fresh, bright. Almost, I would say, kind of a refreshing pastry scent, but still true to life enough that the foodies out there will enjoy this. We'll dig a little bit deeper into those 6 scent notes specifically, but first I want to talk about Big Flirt. This one is very interesting. First of all, this is a killer when it comes to strength. Sitting here, I can smell it. Burning, borderline overpowering, not in a bad way. You want a fragrance that is going to actually throw, project, and give you what you're looking for. And this is, especially for a small candle, quite strong. So with this, we're looking for wild strawberries, chocolate ganache, champagne, as well as jasmine sambac and patchouli gallo. This is quite conceptual. This is not so much truly a fruity fragrance, though of course there is some strawberry there. Think the idea of, a Valentine's chocolate dipped strawberry with champagne, but there's more to it. When we think of fragrances, I always say they're going to transport you to a mood, moment, memory, space, place, or time. This one for me really is a mood. It's really setting the entire scene. You've got some champagne, you have the chocolate, you have the strawberries, but there's more to it. There might be a perfume, or there might actually be flowers in the room. It's heavy, it's rich. It's a really interesting dance between a bit of that strawberry, which is not quite as fruity sweet as your traditional strawberry. The wild strawberry is gonna be a bit more green. The chocolate ganache is there. It's not your hot cocoa. It's not your obvious cocoa. It is rich, it's creamy. It's a very, very dark cacao, say 70-80% cocoa, but it is there. Vanilla brings a creaminess to it, but you do have a bit of an, not quite effervescence, but a light brightness from the champagne. And very, very predominant in here as well, for me at least, is that jasmine sambac, which we'll get into specifically the difference between your traditional jasmine and a jasmine sambac. But it brings a maturity, it brings a sensuality to the fragrance. Not surprising if you've got champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries. There's some sensuality carrying in the room. What I also get from this, and I don't know if this is simply, again, that mood or that moment that this is kind of expressing or transporting me to, or the color of this deep, deep red, but I almost get sort of, as the box shows, like a lipstick fragrance. Now there are some perfumes, fine fragrances, for the body to be worn that do sometimes have a bit of a lipstick, waxy fragrance to them. It can come from orris root, which is the root of the iris flower, or I believe carrot can also give a bit of that waxy makeup lipstick scent. And I don't say that in a bad way. It's not Crayola crayons or Play-Doh, but it almost feels like a tube of lipstick. And so the kisses. So it really is evocative of that mood and moment in a really unique way. The jasmine is quite strong, not one of my favorite florals, but I really appreciate the unique build on this. It is highly conceptual, but in a way where you can still, number one, it is gourmand, which a lot of people really enjoy gourmand in general, but also not so gourmand conceptual that you can't pick out the sort of foodie fragrances. You can pick out some of that chocolate ganache. You can pick out the sweetness from the strawberry, sort of the vanilla. But then you have this patchouli, which we'll get into as well, bringing sort of a sweet herbal spiciness, and that jasmine just bringing that sensual, musky, animalic edge. Really, really intriguing. When it comes to performance, they are solid as far as the burn quality and medium to strong when it comes to the strength, throw, and projection. Now, these are not very large candles. The diameter is probably just shy of 3 inches perhaps, but because it is primarily soy wax with some additional vegetable waxes in there, it does take a bit of time to pull out. And with both of these, I did have to put a foil wrap across the top to really ensure that even pool of wax so that you are not tunneling or having the candle canyon. As you can see, I've burned Guilty Pleasure a bit more, and it does have a fairly clean burn. I believe that I've put on the foil wax each time, and then once it gets that full pool, you can take it off, and it will maintain that healthy pool for the duration of the burn. With Big Flirt, I've only burned it twice. It really is a strong one. Even at one point, I let it go without having the foil wrap on it to see if it would fully pull out. Within about 2.5 hours, it did not get fully pulled. You can see there's a bit of an edge there where it was going to canyon if I would have let it stay lit. But that said, there was still an incredibly healthy strength, throw, and projection. Both of these get up into the air into your noses. I will say, of course, the Guilty Pleasure, it's a lighter almond, meringue, vanilla, raspberry confection. It's going to have a lighter strength in general, but the projection is fine. This one is a powerhouse when it comes to the notes that are in here. They are really strong, and so when they get up in the air, you'll definitely smell those. Again, frankly, even sitting unlit on the table. They're both unique. I think they're both really nice expressions of what they're trying to evoke. And they're actually a really nice pair because they are both gourmand, they're both a bit fruity, very different expressions, very different moods and moments, and frankly, just fun candles to burn at this time of year. And if you're familiar with my fragrance reviews, when we're looking at a fine fragrance like this, I like to dig into the full fragrance pyramid, the top, middle, bottom notes of what we're sniffing here to understand what are these different notes, what is their history, are they a fruit, a floral, a plant, a bark, a resin, a seed, what do they smell like? And so that you start to understand, kind of like fine wine, you start to pick out the notes to understand, number one, what you're sniffing, but what you actually like, so you can kind of build that fragrance in your mind's eye and know if you're purchasing online or you're somewhere where you're not able to actually sniff a fragrance in person. If it says it has patchouli and some jasmine sambac or cedar or frankincense, you know what to expect. So getting into the 6 notes for guilty pleasure, first up we have fresh raspberry. Of course, raspberries are soft, sweet, juicy, acidic, tangy, and tart, more sophisticated than a strawberry. And while cranberries and blackberries have similar aroma chemicals, most of the time perfumers are going to use 2 synthetic compounds for raspberries, either framboline or raspberry ketones, to bring that slightly acidic note with the sweetness. Then whipped meringue, which is a light, airy confection made by beating egg whites with sugar until they form stiff peaks. The scent of whipped meringue is going to be delicate and sweet, a subtle vanilla-like creaminess and a hint of powdered sugar, soft and fluffy, evoking the scent of a freshly whipped marshmallow or sweetened cream. Then almond cake, one of my favorite cakes. In fragrance form, almond cake smells like warm marzipan, think amaretto, with a nutty sweetness and a bit of a cherry-like depth. The cake aspect in almond cake is going to add sort of buttery vanilla warmth, and sometimes can even lean into a touch of baked dough or spice for that cozy, fresh from the oven feel. Cherry blossoms are interesting because in real life, most cherry blossoms have a very subtle fragrance, often described as lightly floral, powdery, slightly sweet with a hint of a, surprise, almond-like note. Some varieties, like the very popular Yoshino cherry, have no fragrance, while others like the Kanzan cherry have a sweet honey-like floral aroma. And in fragrance form, cherry blossom is often enhanced with soft musk, airy florals, or fruity nuances to create that more noticeable and romantic scent. Powdered sugar has a soft, sweet aroma that is light, airy, delicate with almost a vanilla-like warmth. In fine fragrance, it often carries a subtle marshmallow fragrance or spun sugar, think cotton candy scent, to enhance gourmands with a fluffy sweetness. Not as rich as caramelized sugar, but adds that soft, powdery sweetness that feels light and comforting. And then our final note in Guilty Pleasure is vanilla bean butter. So that will be a rich, creamy fragrance, blending the warm, sweet depth of vanilla with a smooth, indulgent fragrance of butter. Gourmand and cozy, a velvety sweetness that adds a bit of decadence and comfort, often used to enhance dessert-like notes in fragrance with a balance of buttery richness and soft vanilla warmth. Those are our 6 notes in that nice, bright, fresh guilty pleasure. Not a guilty pleasure whatsoever. And then our notes in Big Flirt. We start with wild strawberry. Now you may think, oh, that's just a moniker to make it sound different than a strawberry, but there actually is a difference in fragrance. Wild strawberry is often used for its brighter, fresher, slightly tart aroma to add a more natural and airy sweetness. It leans greener and more delicate than a traditional strawberry, with some subtle floral and earthy facets, making it feel a bit more refined and less sugary. Whereas regular strawberry in a fine fragrance will be a bit juicier, sweeter, more syrupy to enhance your gourmand compositions with a ripe, almost candy-like sweetness. Not so much the ripe candy-like sweetness here. Champagne in fragrance captures that effervescent, crisp, slightly fruity aroma of sparkling wine. Often it will feature bright citrus notes, hints of green apple or pear, and a fizzy, airy quality to mimic carbonation. Some interpretations of champagne in fine fragrance will add a touch of white florals, a light musk, or even a yeast-like warmth to enhance that sophisticated bubbly feel. Chocolate ganache in fragrance is rich, velvety, and deeply indulgent, combining the dark, bittersweet depth of melted chocolate with the creamy warmth of heavy cream and butter. It has a smooth, slightly fudgy aroma with a balance of cocoa richness and silky sweetness. Depending on the blend, it can lean more dark and intense or milky and dessert-like, making it a staple for gourmand fragrances. And then a surprise note, which is not in the top line marketing for Big Flirt, and that is jasmine sambac. So the traditional jasmine that we're very familiar with is softer, more powdery and sweet, while jasmine sambac is brighter, greener, and more indolic, with a slightly fruity, honeyed richness. Jasmine sambac is native to South and Southeast Asia, also referred to as Arabian jasmine, often used in teas and perfumes for its heady floral fragrance. In fine fragrance, your traditional jasmine, grandiflorum jasmine, lends a classic, elegant floralcy, while sambac adds a lush, intoxicating depth that is both sensual and modern. Next up, vanilla milk, which in fragrance is creamy, smooth, softly sweet, blending the warm, cozy richness of vanilla bean with a lactonic, velvety milkiness. It has that gentle, comforting aroma, often enhanced with hints of whipped cream or even subtle caramelized sweetness. Vanilla milk creates that soft, indulgent base, adding warmth without being overly heavy. And then our final, perhaps surprise note is patchouli gayo, which is a rare, high-quality variety of patchouli sourced from the Gayo region of Sumatra, Indonesia, and it's known for its smoother, richer, and more refined scent. Compared to your traditional patchouli, which can be earthy, camphoraceous, and sometimes sharp, patchouli gayo has a deeper, more rounded profile with warm, chocolatey, woody, and even slightly smoky nuances. In fine fragrance, it's prized for that luxurious, aged quality, making it feel less raw and more elegant than traditional patchouli. And certainly when you think of Big Flirt having that chocolate ganache and the sensual jasmine sambac, the bright sweetness of champagne, and that greener, delicate strawberry, then patchouli gayo makes absolute sense to bring that depth of that woody, chocolatey patchouli. Altogether, very, very interesting. So unique. I've never smelled a fragrance, anything really, like Big Flirt. And it's interesting. As far as my day-to-day most enjoyable, the one that I go to the most, obviously you can see that is the guilty pleasure because it just is that light, sweet, airy, fresh, but not cloying, not artificial gourmand. But as far as unique, interesting, borderline weird, but good weird, Big Flirt really brings that because the floral and the patchouli gayo with the strawberry and the chocolate, so unique and just a really creative expression for Valentine's Day and beyond. So that is my in-depth sniff and comparison review for the Valentine's Day collection. Again, if you are interested in purchasing any of these in their multiple size forms as a duo or as single candles or also in votive forms, you can check out the Snif website at snif.co. And again, for 10% off, you can use my affiliate code if you wish, which is Joshua10, Joshua10. Let me know if you've got your nose on these or any other similar fragrances or other Snif fragrances. I'd love to hear thoughts on those and any questions you may have. And until next time, take care.